Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to HK Cheating Stories. We appreciate each and every one of you joining us. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's get the story started. My name is Ethan Walker. At least, it used to be. By now, the world thinks I'm dead. My wife, Lisa, cried for me. My best friend, Daniel, swore he had nothing to do with it. The police found my car, soaked in blood, abandoned in a dark, lonely park. A crime with no body. A mystery with no answers. But here's the truth. I planned it all. I vanished, leaving them to take the fall. Because when the people you trust the most betray you, forgiveness isn't an option. Revenge is. And this is the story of how I won. I wasn't supposed to be home tonight. Claire thought I'd be in Chicago until Monday, attending some pointless weekend seminars. At least, that's what I told her. In reality, I wrapped up my work 2 days early, caught an evening flight, and drove straight home. I didn't even text her from the airport. I needed to see it for myself. As I pulled into the driveway, the streetlights flickered. The neighborhood was quiet, only the distant hum of a passing car breaking the silence. The house looked exactly as I had left it, porch light on, curtains drawn. But something felt off. I let the engine idle for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, my heartbeat steady but heavy. If I was right, everything was about to change. Taking a slow breath, I killed the engine and stepped out. The garage door shut behind me with a low mechanical groan, locking me into my own reality. Claire wasn't home. I already knew that. She had texted earlier, something about meeting up with her friend Melissa for drinks. A casual excuse, one she thought wouldn't make me suspicious. She had no idea I had been tracking her movements for weeks now. I walked into the house, setting my briefcase and laptop on the couch. The air inside felt stale, untouched, like a staged home waiting for its owner to return. I took off my coat, hung it by the door, then loosened my tie, the routine movements doing little to calm the storm inside me. The past few weeks had been hell. The denial, the doubt, the endless questioning. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was paranoid. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the sick feeling twisting in my gut. It all started a month ago. A bruise. Just a tiny mark on Claire's collarbone. Barely noticeable, unless you knew where to look. I had noticed. When I asked, she laughed it off, said she must have bumped into something at the gym. But Claire didn't go to the gym. That was the first crack. Then came the late nights. The hushed phone calls. The sudden change in how she dressed when she left the house. Subtle shifts, easy to miss, if you weren't looking. But I was looking. I was watching. So I did what any man in my position would do. I found the truth. 3 weeks ago, I installed a GPS tracker under the bumper of her car. Just a simple device, small, undetectable. Every time she left the house, I watched her movements through an app on my phone. I wanted to be wrong, but I wasn't. She wasn't meeting Melissa for drinks. She wasn't working late. She wasn't out shopping. She was at Daniel Carter's house. Daniel, my best friend since college. The man I trusted more than anyone. The man who had stood beside me at my wedding, toasting to my happiness. The man sleeping with my wife. I clenched my fists, the sharp edge of my wedding band digging into my palm. At first, I told myself I needed proof, solid, undeniable proof. I tracked her for a week. Every time I was out of town, she was there. His house, his bed, my betrayal. And then, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to scream, cry, or beg for an explanation. I wasn't going to let rage consume me. No. I was going to ruin them both. I opened the fridge and grabbed a beer, twisting off the cap with a sharp snap. Taking a slow sip, I walked into the living room, settling into the armchair like a man returning from war, weary but determined. They had no idea what was coming. I already had the pieces in place. The emails sent to my lawyer. The false trail I had planted. The staged crime scene waiting to be discovered. It was almost poetic, the way everything was falling into place. But there was still time. I had to wait a little longer, let the final act play out. At midnight, I cleaned up the kitchen, washing my plates slowly, methodically. Every movement felt deliberate, calculated, like I was wiping away the last traces of my old life. Then, without hesitation, I grabbed my light jacket and stepped into the garage. The air smelled of motor oil and cold steel. The space felt different tonight, darker, heavier. Maybe because I knew that after tonight, there was no turning back. I moved to the workbench, my hands steady as I unlocked a small black case. Inside lay everything I needed, the final pieces of my masterpiece. I ran my fingers over the smooth metal of the revolver. Not for violence, not for blood, just for effect. A stage needs props. A performance needs an audience. And tomorrow, the show would begin. I tucked the weapon into my bag, took one last look at the house I had built, the life I had created, and then I walked out. The garage door shut behind me, and with it, Ethan Walker disappeared. The emergency call went out at 7:37 a.m. 911, what's your emergency? A shaky female voice came through the line, breathing ragged. I think a crime happened. I was jogging in George Washington Park, near the picnic area, and there was a car. The doors were open, the lights were on, and her voice hitched. There was blood. A lot of blood. Are there any injured people? No. No one was there. Just the car. Just the blood. The operator's fingers flew across the keyboard, logging details. Will you wait for the officers? No. The woman said quickly. What if someone's watching? What if they come back? Ma'am, you could be an important witness. But the line went dead. 10 minutes later, red and blue lights slashed through the morning mist as the first patrol car rolled onto the scene. I read about it in the local paper later that day. Mysterious abandoned vehicle found in George Washington Park. Possible foul play. I could almost hear the officers murmuring to each other as they approached the car. The doors were still open, the dome light flickering against the encroaching daylight. Blood, my blood, had dried in splatters across the passenger seat, dark streaks staining the cracked leather. The bullet hole in the seat was small, a clean entry wound. But there was no exit wound, because there was no body. I pictured Detective Nash stepping onto the scene, his practiced gaze sweeping over the details. The open doors, the blood on the pedals, the smear leading toward the firewood pile, a staged struggle, perfectly imperfect. I imagined the moment when he reached for the glove compartment, his gloved fingers rifling through the papers. Then, the pause, the telltale sound of a wallet snapping open. Here, belongs to an Ethan Walker. That was the moment my name officially became a victim. By 2 p.m., they had found her. Lisa. I saw her through the window before she saw them. The way she pulled into the driveway, her suitcase rolling awkwardly as she struggled to get it inside. The way she glanced over her shoulder, an unconscious flicker of unease. Then Nash stepped out of the unmarked car. Mrs. Walker? Her body tensed at the sound of her name. She turned, eyes widening slightly as she took them in. I'm Detective Nash, he said, flashing his badge. This is my partner, Detective Hall. We're looking for your husband, Ethan Walker. Lisa's fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. What? She said, a forced laugh slipping through. Ethan's in Chicago. He has a conference. Nash tilted his head. Are you sure? She nodded quickly. Of course. He always leaves his car at the airport when he travels. Nash and Hall exchanged a look. Mrs. Walker, Nash said carefully. Your husband's car was found abandoned in George Washington Park early this morning. License plate and VIN matched the registration. The driver's door was open. There was a bullet hole in the seat, and a large amount of blood. Lisa froze. For a long second, she didn't say anything. Then she swallowed hard, shaking her head. That doesn't make sense. If it's his car, someone must have stolen it. Ethan's not. She cut herself off, glancing at the house. Mrs. Walker, Nash pressed. When was the last time you spoke with your husband? Lisa's hands fumbled in her coat pocket as she pulled out her phone. Yesterday morning, she mumbled. He called me from Chicago. I'll call him now. The second she hit dial, I imagined the silence in the air. Then, a muffled ringtone. Lisa's head snapped up, eyes darting around. She heard it too. It wasn't coming from her phone. It wasn't coming from Chicago. It was coming from inside Detective Nash's pocket. Lisa's face went white. Slowly, Nash reached into his coat and pulled out a black cell phone. Her husband's cell phone. The screen still lit up with an incoming call. Her call. Lisa stared at it, lips parting, but no words came out. How do you have his phone? She finally whispered. It was found in his car, Nash said evenly. Which is why we're treating this as a possible crime scene. Lisa's breath came quicker now. A crime? We don't know yet. Nash's tone was calm, but firm. That's why we need your help. Can we come inside? There are a few things we need to go over. Lisa hesitated. Her gaze flicked between Nash, Hall, and the house. Her home, her sanctuary. And then, With visible effort, she forced a nod. Yes, she said softly. Come in. Nash gestured for her to lead the way, and I could picture them stepping through the doorway. Lisa's trembling hands, the tension in her shoulders, the weight of the walls closing in around her. She was nervous, too nervous, and Nash had learned long ago that when people were scared, really scared, it was usually because they had something to hide. Lisa stepped aside, allowing the detectives into the house. I imagined her pulse hammering in her throat, her mind scrambling for explanations. This was the moment where her world started to tilt, where reality twisted into something unrecognizable. The moment where she realized she was trapped. Nash moved with quiet authority, his eyes sweeping the living room. He took in the neatness, the laptop on the coffee table, the folded blanket on the couch, the untouched bottle of wine on the counter. A home that should have belonged to a loving couple. A place that should have felt warm and lived in. But now, it was just a stage. A perfectly arranged set for a life that no longer existed. Lisa hovered near the doorway, gripping the back of a chair like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Mrs. Walker, Nash said, his voice calm but firm. Can you tell me exactly when you last spoke with your husband? She swallowed. Yesterday morning, she murmured. He called from Chicago. I told you, he's at a conference. Right. Nash pulled out his notepad, flipping through the pages. That's what you told us earlier. He lifted his eyes to hers. But his phone was in his car, here in town. That means he never made it to Chicago. Lisa's fingers tightened around the chair. That doesn't make any sense. He told me. She stopped, shaking her head. Maybe he lost his phone before his flight. Maybe someone stole it from the airport and... Except his car wasn't at the airport, Nash interrupted. It was abandoned in George Washington Park, with blood inside. Lisa's mouth opened, but no words came out. You said Ethan was supposed to come home Monday, Nash continued. But his briefcase and laptop are sitting right over there. He nodded toward the couch. That means he was already home. And you had no idea. Lisa blinked rapidly, her hands trembling now. I don't understand. Are you saying something happened to him? Nash didn't answer immediately. He let the silence stretch. Let the weight of the moment sink into her bones. Finally, he said, we don't know yet. That's what we're trying to figure out. Lisa exhaled shakily, pressing her fingers to her temple. Oh my God, she whispered. Ethan, he could be hurt somewhere. He could need help. Nash studied her carefully. Her reaction felt real. The panic, the fear, it was all there. But was it because she was worried about her husband? Or because she was worried about what they would find? Behind him, Detective Hall cleared his throat. Mrs. Walker, is there any reason why your husband would have come home early without telling you? Lisa blinked, shaking her head. No. He always tells me when plans change. Nash exchanged a glance with Hall. Then let's talk about your plans, he said smoothly. How did you spend your weekend? Lisa hesitated. I was here most of Saturday. I went shopping in the afternoon. Then, I had dinner and went to my friend Melissa's place. I stayed the night there. And Sunday, I slept in. Got home around 2. Nash nodded. Did Ethan ever call you? Text you? Lisa's lips pressed together. No. But if his phone was here, then that makes sense, right? Maybe, Nash said. But we'll still need to confirm your whereabouts for the weekend. Lisa stiffened. You think I'm lying? Nash didn't answer. Instead, he flipped to a new page in his notepad. When you got home today, was anything out of place? Anything missing? Lisa hesitated again. No, I don't think so. You said Ethan left for his trip Friday morning. Did you notice his briefcase or laptop missing then? She faltered. I didn't check. I just assumed he took them. Nash let that hang in the air for a moment before he stood. Mrs. Walker, do you mind if we take a look around? Lisa's breath hitched slightly. Do you need a warrant for that? Nash gave her a small, reassuring smile. Not if you give us permission. She hesitated, her grip tightening on the chair again. Then, slowly, she nodded. Fine. Look around. I want to find Ethan. The detectives didn't waste time. They moved through the house methodically, opening closets, checking the kitchen, peering into the garage. I could imagine Nash running his fingers over the dust-free laptop, the neatly placed briefcase. They weren't hiding. They were waiting. Then, in the garage, they found it. Blood. Smears on the gas and brake pedals of Lisa's car. Hall straightened slowly. Nash. Nash turned, his face unreadable. He followed Hall's gaze, his eyes landing on the faint, dried stains beneath the petals. Lisa's car had blood inside. Lisa's car had evidence. Lisa's car had a story to tell. They both turned back toward the house. Lisa was in the kitchen now, pouring herself a glass of water with shaking hands. She had no idea what they had just found, and Nash wanted to see exactly how she would react. They walked back inside, their steps heavier this time. Lisa glanced up, eyes wary. "You're back," she said slowly. "Did you find anything?" Nash didn't answer right away. He just studied her. "Finally," he said, "we found blood in your car." Lisa's breath caught. "What?" "Smears on the pedals," Hall clarified. "We need to tow your vehicle for further inspection." Lisa's eyes darted between them, panic creeping into her face. "That doesn't make sense. I haven't been to the park." "There's no way." "Mrs. Walker," Nash interrupted gently. "We need to know how the blood got there." Lisa took a slow step back, her body going rigid. "I don't know," she whispered. But the way her hands started shaking, the way she pressed herself against the counter, like she needed something solid to hold on to, it told the detectives everything they needed to know. I could feel the walls closing in around her. Lisa stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, her breath coming in quick, uneven bursts. The moment Nash mentioned the blood in her car, something in her shifted, a flicker of panic, a tightening of her jaw. She wasn't just shocked. She was afraid. And fear always meant one thing: guilt. "You must be wrong," she stammered, shaking her head. "I haven't been to that park in weeks. I don't know how blood could have gotten in my car." Nash's eyes didn't leave hers. "That's why we're towing it. Our forensic team will run tests." Lisa's fingers dug into the countertop. "But it's my car. I need it." "You'll get it back," Nash assured her. "If everything checks out." Her mouth opened, then closed again. She was fighting to stay calm, but I could see the way her hands trembled, the way her shoulders tightened. She was unraveling, piece by piece. And the best part? She had no idea that I was the one pulling the strings. Nash took a slow step forward, lowering his voice. "Mrs. Walker, is there something you want to tell us?" Lisa flinched. "Like what?" "Like why there's blood in your car." Her lips parted, and for a split second, I thought she might break. But then she straightened, her face smoothing into something colder, more composed. "I have no idea," she said firmly. "But I didn't do anything to my husband." She was still playing the innocent wife. I almost admired her for it. Almost. 15 minutes later, Lisa sat at the kitchen table, hands curled around a mug of coffee she hadn't touched. Nash and Hall sat across from her, their notebooks open. The interrogation had begun. "Let's start with the basics," Nash said. "We need to confirm your whereabouts this weekend. Walk us through your schedule, hour by hour." Lisa took a slow breath. "Saturday morning, I did some chores around the house. Ethan called from Chicago around 1:30. He apologized for not being home. I went shopping that afternoon, got home around 5. Had dinner, then went to Melissa's house around 7:30. Nash jotted something down. "And you stayed there all night?" Lisa nodded. "Yes." "What time did you wake up Sunday morning?" "Around 9. "And you left Melissa's house when?" Lisa hesitated. "Around noon, maybe a little later." Nash tapped his pen against his notepad. "But earlier, you said you got home at 2. Lisa's fingers twitched against her mug. "I stopped for coffee on the way back." "Where?" "What? Where did you stop for coffee?" Nash repeated. "Which cafe? What time did you pay?" Lisa blinked rapidly. I don't remember." "You don't remember?" Nash leaned forward. "A missing husband. Blood in your car. And you don't remember?" Lisa let out a shaky breath, her composure slipping. "It was just a quick stop. I wasn't paying attention to the time." Hall glanced at Nash, then turned back to Lisa. "And what about Daniel Carter?" Her entire body stiffened. "What about him?" she asked, her voice too carefully controlled. "How long have you been seeing him?" The mug slipped from her fingers, sloshing coffee onto the table. Lisa jerked back, eyes wide. "Excuse me." Nash didn't blink. "We know about the affair, Lisa. We know you've been seeing Daniel Carter behind your husband's back." Lisa's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "That's not. Your husband knew too," Nash continued, cutting her off. "Did you know he put a GPS tracker on your car?" Lisa's breath hitched. "He held up a small device, placing it on the table. He was watching you. Every time you told him you were out with friends, he saw where you really went. Straight to Daniel's house." Lisa's hands trembled. She looked at the tracker like it was a ticking bomb, ready to blow apart the lie she had been so carefully weaving. "Ethan knew?" she whispered. "Yes," Nash said. "For weeks. He was planning to confront you. Maybe even divorce you. But then, something happened." He tilted his head. Something that made him disappear. Lisa's breath came faster now, her pulse visibly pounding at her throat. "I swear, I didn't hurt him," she whispered. "I didn't even know he was back in town." "But Daniel did," Nash said smoothly. Lisa's head snapped up. "What?" "Daniel Carter. Your lover. The last person Ethan would have wanted to see you with. We're bringing him in for questioning. Maybe he can tell us what happened." Lisa shook her head violently. "No, no, Daniel had nothing to do with this." "Then why did Ethan vanish the same night you were with him?" Tears welled in Lisa's eyes. "I don't know," she choked out. "But Daniel wouldn't hurt Ethan. I wouldn't hurt Ethan." Hall studied her carefully. "Then maybe it was self-defense." Lisa gasped, horror flashing across her face. "Oh my God. You think We think something happened," Nash said simply. "Something bad. And unless you want to be the one holding all the blame, now's the time to tell us the truth." Lisa was shaking now, her breath ragged, her mind spinning. And that was the moment I knew. I had won. Because guilt had a way of rotting people from the inside out. And Lisa Walker was already falling apart. Lisa Walker was unraveling. I could picture her sitting there, spine rigid, hands trembling against the tabletop as the detectives dismantled her world piece by piece. And it was beautiful. She had spent months sneaking around, weaving lies with the precision of a master manipulator. But now, she was a cornered animal, trapped in the cold fluorescence of an interrogation room, the walls pressing in, the air thick with accusation. Detective Nash sat across from her, his notebook closed, his gaze steady. No more soft voices. No more gentle probing. Just the truth, barreling toward her like a freight train. "Mrs. Walker, we're giving you a chance," Nash said, his tone calm but firm. "Tell us what happened to your husband before we find out on our own." Lisa exhaled shakily, her knuckles whitening. "I already told you I don't know." Nash leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Then let's talk about Daniel Carter." Lisa flinched, her eyes flicking toward the one-way mirror. She knew someone was behind it, watching, studying, judging. "There's nothing to talk about," she murmured. Nash didn't blink. "Really?" "Because your husband tracked you to his house. Repeatedly." He slid a printed GPS report across the table, the cold, irrefutable proof staring her in the face. "You weren't careful, Lisa. Ethan knew." Her breath hitched. "He never said anything." "Maybe he was waiting for the right moment," Nash cut in. "Or maybe he came home early to confront you. Maybe that's why his car was abandoned in a park covered in blood." Lisa shook her head wildly. No, that's not what happened." "Then tell us what did." "I don't know," she cried, slamming her hands on the table. "I don't know, okay? I was with Daniel. I didn't even know Ethan was back in town." Nash studied her, silent. Then, casually, he asked, "Do you love Daniel?" Lisa hesitated. It was barely a second, but it was enough. I care about him," she admitted, her voice small. "And your husband?" Lisa's lips pressed together. The silence was deafening. Hall, who had been standing near the door, finally spoke. "You know, Lisa, when someone goes missing, we look at the spouse first." Lisa's head snapped up. "What?" "No. And then we look at the lover," Nash added smoothly. "Because statistically, it's almost always one of you." Lisa's pulse was visibly pounding at her throat. "I didn't hurt Ethan, and neither did Daniel." "Then why is there blood in your car?" Lisa's hands curled into fists. "I don't know." "And why was Ethan's phone in his own car, but not his body?" "I don't know." The door opened, cutting through her ragged breathing. A uniformed officer stepped inside and nodded at Nash. "Sir, we have Daniel Carter in the next room." Lisa inhaled sharply. "Oh my God, good," Nash said, standing. "Let's see if his story matches yours." Lisa lurched forward, grabbing Nash's wrist. Please, don't let him say something stupid." Nash arched a brow. "Why would he say something stupid?" Lisa's grip slackened. I don't know." She was lying. And she was terrified. Daniel Carter had always been cocky. A smooth talker, a charmer, the kind of man who could lie with a straight face and make you believe it. But that only worked when he wasn't being dragged into an interrogation room with his best friend's blood on his car. When the officers picked him up, he played it cool, acted like he had nothing to hide. But now he was sitting in a cold metal chair, his fingers tapping against the table, his knee bouncing with barely contained nerves. Detective Hall didn't waste time. "How long have you been sleeping with Lisa Walker?" Daniel scoffed. "Is that really why I'm here?" Hall slid a file across the table. Ethan knew about the affair. And now he's missing. Daniel stopped tapping. He swallowed. "I don't know where Ethan is." "But you saw him that night, didn't you?" "No," Daniel said quickly. "I mean, maybe. I don't know. He could have been watching us, but I didn't see him." "You think he was watching?" Hall pressed. "Why?" Daniel hesitated. "Because Ethan's smart. If he knew, he wouldn't just sit on that information. He'd do something." Hall exchanged a glance with Nash. "Like what?" Daniel exhaled sharply. "I don't know, okay? Maybe he wanted revenge. Maybe he set us up." Nash smirked. "That's funny. Because Lisa thinks you had nothing to do with it." Daniel's eyes flicked toward the mirror, just like Lisa's had. Like he could feel her watching. "Lisa and I had nothing to do with Ethan's disappearance," Daniel said finally. "If something happened to him, we weren't involved." Hall leaned in. "Then why did we find your company's shovels in the river? The same place we found the murder weapon." Daniel froze. His breath stilled. His fingers stopped tapping. And for the first time since he walked in, he looked truly afraid. "Wait," he said hoarsely. "What are you talking about?" Hall didn't answer. He just smiled. Because Daniel Carter had just realized the truth. He was trapped, and there was no way out. The walls were closing in. Lisa and Daniel were trapped, and they knew it. I could imagine them sitting in their separate interrogation rooms, the weight of the evidence pressing down on them like an avalanche. They had lied, denied, and deflected, but none of it mattered now, because the truth wasn't on their side. It was on mine. Their trial began 3 months later. The courtroom buzzed with reporters, spectators, and legal analysts eager to dissect every detail. The story was sensational. A missing husband, a bloody crime scene, an affair, and a murder weapon fished out of the river. It didn't matter that my body had never been found. The prosecution didn't need a body. They had enough. Lisa sat at the defense table, her once polished appearance dulled by stress and sleepless nights. She had lost weight. Her hands trembled when she thought no one was looking. Daniel sat beside her, his usual arrogance replaced by something tighter, a caged desperation. He still thought he could talk his way out of this, that his silver tongue would save him. He was wrong. The prosecutor stood before the jury, calm, deliberate, lethal. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may not have Ethan Walker's body, but we have something just as damning, his blood." She stepped toward the jury box. "We have his blood in his abandoned car, his blood in Lisa Walker's vehicle, and traces of his blood on Daniel Carter's gas pedal. This is not a coincidence. This is evidence of murder." Lisa flinched. Daniel tensed. Ethan Walker discovered his wife's affair. He tracked her. He confronted her. And what happened next? He vanished, leaving behind only his blood. She turned, gesturing toward the courtroom screen. "The medical examiner will testify that the amount of blood found at the scene was fatal, that no human being could survive such a loss without immediate medical intervention. Intervention that Ethan Walker never received." The jury listened, rapt. "We will show you evidence that Lisa Walker and Daniel Carter planned to be together, that they saw Ethan as an obstacle, and when he refused to go quietly, they silenced him." Lisa sucked in a breath, her fingers digging into the edge of the table. Daniel clenched his jaw. "They say they're innocent." The prosecutor's voice was steady, controlled, unshakable. "But evidence doesn't lie." She turned toward them, her eyes like knives. "And neither will we." Lisa took the stand on the third day. She swore she had nothing to do with my disappearance, that she loved me, that she would never hurt me. Then came the cross-examination. "Mrs. Walker," the prosecutor said, flipping through a thick folder, "where were you between midnight and 2 a.m. on the night your husband disappeared?" Lisa's eyes darted toward Daniel. "I was at his house." "And what were you doing?" Lisa hesitated. "Answer the question." Lisa swallowed hard. We were together." "Together?" The prosecutor arched a brow. "You mean sleeping together while your husband was bleeding out somewhere?" Lisa's face crumpled. "I didn't know. Didn't you?" Lisa's lip trembled. "You spent the night in another man's bed while your husband was dying, and you expect the jury to believe you weren't involved." Lisa opened her mouth, closed it. The courtroom was silent. Lisa's own guilt had just spoken louder than anything she could say. Then came Daniel's turn. He played it smooth, of course. Confident. Controlled. until the prosecutor dropped the real bombshell. Mr. Carter, would you care to explain why shovels from your landscaping company were found in the river alongside the murder weapon? Daniel's breath stilled. His knee started bouncing. I don't know. No. The prosecutor tilted her head. Because those same shovels had traces of Ethan Walker's DNA on them. Daniel's lips parted slightly. That's not possible. Are you sure? Daniel looked toward Lisa, then back at the jury. Someone must have planted them. Planted them. The prosecutor's smile was sharp. That's your defense. Daniel clenched his fists. He had just realized he wasn't as smart as he thought. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, the verdict was read swiftly. We find the defendants guilty of second-degree homicide. Lisa gasped, a broken sound ripping from her throat. Daniel slammed his hands against the table. No, we didn't. The judge's gavel silenced them. Order in the court. Lisa turned to her attorney. Please, she whispered. Please, tell them I didn't. But no one was listening. Because the sentence was already set. Lisa Walker and Daniel Carter, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Lisa sobbed. Daniel sat there, stone-faced, his whole body trembling with fury. And I was watching. They had no idea, of course. No one did. But I was out there. Alive. Free. And as I read the verdict in the morning paper, I smiled to myself. They had ruined me first. But in the end, I had won. 15 years to life. That was the sentence. Lisa and Daniel were dragged from the courtroom in cuffs, their faces twisted in horror, in disbelief. They had walked in that morning hoping for a miracle, hoping that somehow, some way, they would escape the fate tightening around their throats. But there were no miracles left for them, because I made sure of that. I sat in a cafe across town, watching the live stream of their conviction on my laptop, a cup of coffee cooling beside me. The gavel had barely struck the judge's desk before the media had exploded, headlines screaming guilty, courtroom sketches plastered on every news site. The world had just decided their fate. And yet, no one, not the jury, not the prosecution, not even Lisa and Daniel, had any idea that the man they had supposedly murdered was alive and well, that I was watching it all unfold, that I was celebrating their downfall. Because this was the masterpiece I had spent months crafting. When I disappeared that night, I made sure every detail was perfect. The blood in the car, the bullet hole, the stage struggle in the park. Every element designed to paint a picture, a narrative that Lisa and Daniel couldn't escape. And then, I vanished. I had spent months planning my exit, making sure that once I left my old life behind, there would be nothing left for them to find. A new name, a new home, a new life. I had everything I needed, and I never looked back. Not until now. 18 months passed. Lisa and Daniel rotted in prison while I built something better. I had found a place for myself, a quiet town where no one knew my name, where no one saw me as a victim. I had work, a home, a new love. She had no idea who I really was. To her, I was just a man who had moved into town, quiet and reserved, but hardworking. A man with no past. She asked questions sometimes. Why don't you talk about your old life? I'd smile and kiss her, whispering, because it doesn't matter anymore. And she'd accept it, because she loved me, because she didn't know the truth, because she didn't know what I had done. And then, everything changed. It started with a letter. A plain white envelope slipped under the door of the Innocence Project's office in New York. Inside, a confession. Mine. A letter detailing exactly how I had faked my death, how I had framed them, how I had won, and attached to it, DNA proof. My fingerprints. My blood. All undeniable evidence that the crime never happened. I had known this moment would come. I had planned for it. Because even though I had destroyed Lisa and Daniel, even though I had buried them alive, I didn't want them dead. No, I wanted them to suffer. I wanted them to feel every ounce of betrayal that I had felt. I wanted them to wake up every morning in a cold, lifeless prison cell, knowing I had done this to them. But I didn't want them behind bars forever. Not because I cared, because I wanted them to live with what they had lost. So, I sent the letter. And I waited. 1 week later, the news broke. New evidence proves Ethan Walker is alive. Lisa Walker and Daniel Carter exonerated after wrongful conviction. They were free, but they were broken. Lisa stepped out of prison looking hollow, her face thin, her eyes dull. She had spent 18 months fighting to prove she was innocent, 18 months wondering if I was dead, if she had somehow played a role in my destruction. And now she knew the truth, that I had played her first. Daniel was worse. He walked out of those prison gates ruined, his business gone, his reputation shredded, his arrogance reduced to ashes. The man who had stolen my wife, who had betrayed my trust, who had laughed behind my back, was nothing now. And when he looked into the cameras, his eyes burning with rage, I knew. He understood exactly what I had done to him. That was the real punishment. Not prison, not a sentence, but the knowledge that I had outplayed them both, that I was alive, that I was watching, and that I had won. They were free, but they weren't whole. I watched Lisa step out of the prison gates, her face pale, her body thinner than I remembered. Her once bright eyes were dull now, sunken from months of fear, stress, and isolation. She wasn't the same woman I had once loved. She wasn't even the same woman who had betrayed me. She was something lesser. Daniel followed behind her, his usual cocky swagger replaced with a stiff, calculated walk. He looked over his shoulder constantly, like a man who knew the world had changed while he was locked away. Because it had. They had nothing now. No business. No future. No me. And they knew exactly who to blame. The state issued them each a $50,000 settlement for their wrongful conviction. A pathetic consolation prize. Lisa didn't fight it. She barely acknowledged the money, barely acknowledged anything. Her parents came to pick her up, their worried whispers swallowed by the sound of reporters shouting questions at her. Lisa, do you have anything to say about your ex-husband? How does it feel knowing Ethan Walker set you up? She didn't answer, because there was nothing left to say. Daniel, though, he was different. He was angry. This is bullshit. He barked at the cameras, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles went white. He ruined my life, and he just gets to walk away? Yes, I did, because I had planned for everything, including this moment. 2 weeks passed before she received the letter. It arrived in a plain white envelope, slipped under her apartment door in the dead of night. Lisa hesitated before picking it up, as if she could already feel the weight of my presence pressing against her. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Mine. Her fingers shook as she tore it open. And then, she read, Lisa, I suppose you think I owe you an explanation. I don't. But I'm giving you one anyway. You betrayed me. You lied to me. You let another man touch you, whisper in your ear, sleep in the bed we shared. I could have left. I could have divorced you, moved on, let you go. But you didn't deserve that mercy. You deserved to lose. So, I took everything from you. Your freedom, your lover, your life as you knew it. And now, I'm giving you back what's left. I am not coming back. I have built something new, something better. I have a woman who loves me. A life that is untainted by your lies. I am free, and you will never see me again. I hope you think of me every time you close your eyes. I hope my name tastes like ashes in your mouth. Goodbye, Lisa. Forever. Ethan. Lisa let the letter slip from her fingers, her body trembling. She sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, tears sliding silently down her face. Because this was the final nail in the coffin. She had lost me long ago, but now she had lost hope. And that was the most perfect revenge of all. There are lessons in every story. Some are whispered, some are screamed, but they're always there, waiting for those willing to listen. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that betrayal doesn't go unanswered. People think they can lie, cheat, and manipulate without consequence. That trust is something they can toy with, something they can break and walk away from, untouched. They're wrong, because every action has a price. Lisa and Daniel thought they could rewrite the rules, build something on the wreckage of what they had destroyed. But life doesn't work that way. Lies always unravel. Secrets always surface. And the past? It never stays buried. If there's a lesson here, one worth remembering, it's this. Be careful with the people who love you. Respect them. Honor them. Because once trust is broken, it's not just lost, it becomes a weapon. And some people, when pushed far enough, will use it. Not everyone forgives. Some of us burn everything down, and we don't look back.